Why do the people who understand the world the most suffer the most? Stay with me. The truth is darker than you think. There are in-between moments when your mind drifts into that hidden space, where you start asking questions most people never dare to touch. Questions about life, purpose, the universe, the strange architecture of human emotions, and the hidden patterns woven into everything around you. And you don't ask these questions because you want to. You ask them because you can't not ask them. Because your mind dissects reality the way an artist studies light, or a musician listens for rhythm in silence. And yet, instead of answers, you often find something heavier. A deep sadness, an ache beneath your ribs, a feeling of being tired in a way sleep can't fix. That's the paradox of the deep thinker, the curse hidden inside the gift. The more you understand, the more you feel. And the more you feel, the heavier the world becomes. It's not weakness. It's not fragility. It is the text of awareness, emotional price of seeing life, with the brightness turned all the way up. Deep thinkers move through the world like people hearing a frequency others can't detect. While most people skim the surface of life, floating from distraction to distraction, you feel the undercurrent. The vibration of everything unspoken, everything unresolved. You notice the hesitation hidden behind a smile, the exhaustion concealed behind someone's eyes, the slight emotional tremors in a voice, the contradictions people don't even realize they're living. You see the beauty others miss, yes, but you also see the cracks. You see the emotional bruises people hide. You see the imbalance in society's systems. You see the unfairness that everyone has quietly agreed not to talk about. This isn't something you choose. It's simply the way your mind is constructed: perceptive, receptive, unable to look away. And this heightened perception becomes both a superpower and a burden, because once you see the world clearly, you can't go back to living in the bliss of ignorance. Awareness brings illumination, but it also brings sorrow. The price of noticing everything is feeling everything. People often assume deep thinkers are purely intellectual, but the truth is, they are deeply emotional. Their intelligence doesn't shield them from pain, it amplifies it. They don't just understand suffering, they absorb it. When they hear about tragedy, they don't see statistics. They imagine real faces, real nights of fear, real moments of despair. When they witness cruelty, their heart doesn't move on, it lingers. When someone they love is hurting, their empathy feels like a magnet pulling that pain directly into their own body. And this is where the internal war begins. The head sees the world logically. The heart feels the world spiritually. And the deep thinker stands in the middle of that battlefield, trying to reconcile truths that cannot be reconciled. This constant emotional permeability drains them. They go through life carrying not only their own pain, but the pain of others, the pain of society, the pain of humanity itself. And the world rarely sees it, because deep thinkers have mastered the art of looking calm while feeling everything. Another heavy burden of the deep thinking mind is the relentless inner dialogue that never stops. While others can switch off, distract themselves, scroll away their worries, your mind continues running like a machine with no off. You analyze, dissect, question, reflect. You replay conversations, evaluate decisions, anticipate future outcomes, interpret subtle emotions, examine your own patterns. It's constant, it's consuming, it's exhausting. Nights become battlegrounds, where sleep fights against thought, and thought always wins. Even joy is examined. Even peace is questioned. Even happiness is studied under the microscope of your mind, as if you're afraid it will disappear the moment you stop understanding it. And sometimes it does, because the deep thinker's curse is that the mind never stops long enough for the heart to rest. People say stop overthinking, not realizing that for deep thinkers, overthinking isn't an action, it's a default setting. It's reflexive, automatic, unchosen. This constant mental depth often leads to a different kind of pain, not the loneliness of being without people, but the loneliness of being without understanding. Deep thinkers live with a rich inner world, full of imagination, introspection, and thought. But how do you explain that world to people who never explore their own? How do you talk about the weight you feel when others only want small talk? How do you express cosmic thoughts in a world built on convenience and speed? Sometimes you try to open pieces of yourself, but people call you too intense, too sensitive, or too serious. And slowly, you retreat. Not out of pride, but out of exhaustion. You get tired of being misunderstood, tired of explaining your depth to people who prefer the surface. And so the deep thinker becomes both hyper-aware and profoundly unseen. Surrounded, but solitary. Present, but distant. Visible, but not known. That is a loneliness no crowd can fix. This loneliness becomes even heavier when paired with existential awareness. Deep thinkers don't just live life, they contemplate its architecture. They see time not as days on a calendar, but as waves in an ocean. They see mortality not as an abstract concept, but as an ever-present horizon. They question purpose, meaning, free will, morality, consciousness, the very foundations of existence. And these questions, while fascinating, rarely bring comfort. The more deeply you look into the nature of reality, the more you realize how fragile it is, how temporary everything is, how vast and indifferent the universe can be. That realization can be liberating, yes, but it can also be terrifying. It strips away illusions that others rely on to feel safe. It reveals truths that others avoid because those truths make life harder. Yet the deep thinker cannot avoid them. Their mind pulls them toward these truths, the way gravity pulls a stone toward the earth. But here is the part most people never see. Deep thinkers aren't suffering because they're broken. They're suffering because they're awake. They feel deeply because they're alive deeply. They question because they care. They hurt because they understand. Their pain is not a malfunction, it's a function of depth. A heart that feels more will also ache more. A mind that sees more will also worry more. A soul that reaches further will also bruise easier. But those very traits, the sensitivity, the perception, the introspection, are what make deep thinkers capable of extraordinary compassion, creativity, insight, and courage. They are the people who write the books that change perspectives, who create the art that heals strangers, who invent the ideas that shape future generations, who love with a depth that leaves permanent imprints on others. Their suffering gives them a softness that the world desperately needs. Their vulnerability gives them a wisdom that cannot be taught. Their sadness, when understood and channeled, becomes a source of profound meaning. Deep thinkers are not meant to be shallow, numb, or indifferent. They are meant to feel deeply, see deeply, question deeply, and live deeply. The key is not to suppress the depth, but to direct it. To find people who speak your emotional language, who understand the world with the same reverence, intensity, and honesty. To create, write, speak, paint, build, help, because creation turns inner chaos into outer clarity. To seek stillness, not as an escape from thought, but as a way to organize it. To embrace solitude, not as isolation, but as communion with your own mind. And to remember, always, that you are not too much. You are simply tuned to a frequency most people cannot hear. And that is not a defect, it is a destiny.